Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to
This is Nos Odietis. This episode of Nos Odietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Odietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
A sideline fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Ray Gibbs through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nicola Dero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is going good!
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Porter says cheated!
You wanna win? This is the Seattle Sounders, bro.
Welcome to another edition of Nos Odietis, sponsored by Full Pull Wines, Watson's Counter, and our subscribers. This is episode 431, and we're recording on Wednesday, September 6, 2023. I'm your host, Jeremiah Shan. Joining me today is my co-host, Aaron, and our producer, Lickett. For a half, all seemed good in the Sounders world. They were flying around the field, scoring goals, and beating the Timbers at home. They took a 2-0 lead into halftime and that easily could have been 3-0, but just as importantly, were making the plays they needed to make to keep the Timbers off the scoreboard. We all know what happened next. Léo Chu picked up what I will still insist was a pretty soft second yellow card. The Sounders went down a man, and the Timbers came roaring back to tie the game and ultimately claim a point. I am still annoyed about that, but I also have some mixed feelings about what this all means. But let's start with you, Aaron. How are you feeling, and what does this say about the Sounders' chances? We had built this up as a sort of must-win game, and they didn't win.
Yeah, and now I think both of us are kind of looking for ways to not necessarily backpedal, but because I do think that there were reasons to be encouraged.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're being coldly rational about everything, you can point to those and say, you know what, they're starting to turn this around. Raul scored. Yes, Leo made a mistake by taking his shirt off and was, probably unlucky to get a second yellow. But he looked great. The Timbers, kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And that's not wrong. But me personally, maybe this is a failing on my part. Maybe I'm becoming more superstitious in my old age. I don't know. But I can't remove this from the context of the rest of the season. Like, I can't be dispassionate about it because it just everything does feel so cursed. And, just to play that well and not come away with a win under those circumstances just feels predictable because of the way the season has gone. And and hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they have started to figure things out and turn it around, and players are getting healthy and coming back into form. And this will be a blip, a minor bump in the road on the way to glory. Right. But as much as I think you're right that there were encouraging signs in that game, I can't get there yet.
I guess I think I actually agree with most of what you said. The one thing I will offer in maybe not rebuttal, but the thing I'll offer is if what you were looking for was a hint of hope that the Sounders still have it, there is a hint that they have it. But I think I think I'm stealing this line from you. You basically said this is a team that appears to have the talent to win, but they don't have it right now. And I think is that what you said? Did I just totally butcher the line you gave? Because I was going to use this in something, and I'm like, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to give it to Aaron. So why don't you use this line?
I'll take the credit for it. I don't remember saying it, but I think it's true. I mean, I definitely, it's possible I said it. I don't know.
It seems like something you would say.
Yeah, that works for me. I think that that's true. I don't think that they have whatever that is. They ain't got it.
Yeah.
I guess find it, right? Like right. Not all hope is lost, but right now they ain't got it.
Yeah. So this is, I think I know where I wanted to go with this. The Sounders showed me enough that I'm willing to believe they might figure it out. But I think they also showed that how far they are away from figuring it out. Like they still have some real flaws in this team. And I don't necessarily think they're talent flaws. Like this, like the Timbers aren't good. You can't convince me otherwise. They aren't a good team. And I think the Sounders are in better shape than them. I think like you can go down the roster and I think almost in every identifiable way you can say the Sounders are better. But that only underscores how frustrating it is that they can't figure out how to beat this team.
Yeah.
Like it's been 2 years, 6 games since they've beaten them. I wrote in my column that it's almost like there was this monkey paw situation where someone was like, I would give anything to absolutely pants the Timbers in Providence Park. This would be, I'd give almost anything.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what you're giving, I guess. Like the Timbers haven't been good for 2 years and the Sounders can't beat them. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it's nuts. And I think nothing more than the last 2 years against the Timbers, I think really hammers home the point that for a long time when the Sounders were at their best during their best years, they were frequently more than the sum of their parts. You would look at the roster and you'd say, yes, there's some really good players here, but a lot of teams have really good players. This team overachieves based on the talent on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like the opposite. It feels like they are less than the sum of their parts.
Yeah. And I suppose that you could say maybe that's a coaching failing. Maybe maybe the team isn't put together as efficiently as it could be. I don't know what the answer is. And yet I will say that if you are looking for an excuse to feel like this is worth paying attention to, I think the Sounders kind of gave you that, right? Like if your bar for being engaged was just give me reason to believe that that better days are ahead, I think the Sounders actually achieved that. And that's not so much just about the result against the Timbers, but it was about putting together back to back 3 consecutive quality performances, at least performances in which you could find genuine positives out of them. And that's, those are like, these are babies. These are like lowest bar that you can clear type things. But at least they're giving us that. And, 2 weeks ago, we were saying this team is unwatchable.
Right.
And I think they have at least, they've improved significantly from unwatchable.
Yeah. I mean, the first half against the Timbers was objectively entertaining, I think. Like
it was the most fun. It was the most entertaining half of soccer they've played in probably 5 months.
Yeah, they were stringing together good moves. They were incisive in the final third. They pressed effectively. They were fun to watch. They looked very good, and the Timbers do suck, and I don't think you can discount that from the equation. But I mean, the Sounders. MLS is one of those leagues where you're generally only going to look really good for extended periods against bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
And the other games are going to be kind of tense just because the talent gaps are so small. But the Sounders won one of those tough kind of scrappy games against Austin and looked like they were going to blow the doors off a bad team, which is really all you can ask.
Yeah.
And then second half happens and really it's like that 5-10 minutes of the second half really that happened. And but you're right that is for the first time in a very long time I had fun watching them. I was having a good time watching the Sounders play soccer, and not just because they were beating the Timbers, because they were playing attractive soccer and doing it effectively.
Well, let me ask just because I feel like this is a thing we should address. What did you make of the whole Léo Chu situation? Did you how mad are you at him?
I'm not
Does
mad.
he deserve to get red carded?
I don't think he deserved to get red carded. I do think my understanding of that yellow card was that it was a persistent infringement yellow card more than just the foul itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably, I would think that's...
It would almost have to be because it was barely a foul. Right.
Yeah,
and, it shouldn't be this way, but it almost always is. It's exceedingly rare for players to get persistent infringement second yellows, unless they're being really obtuse and really reckless. And I don't think that was the case here.
Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, it's like, that's the other side of that is that's why you don't get a yellow for taking your shirt off in the 30th minute. But I'm not mad at, I mean, he's a young kid who scored a big goal against the Sounders' biggest rival in a game where it really started to feel like they were turning the tide. I wish he hadn't taken his shirt off. I think if you're mad about it, you should go outside. Is what I would say.
Well, so the other line, and this is I don't want to like create a straw man argument, but I think this was what was articulated. I think I'm fairly articulating what Mark Kastner has said in both print and in private. Was he really felt like Brian Schmetzer messed up by not removing Chu at halftime? Where do you fall on that?
I think Léo, I mean, I think he played really well. And I think you can make the argument that in a game that's probably going to continue to be chippy, maybe you don't want to have a younger player who is, I don't think a reckless player, but is occasionally prone to making, you know, I don't want to say dumb fouls, but just fouls you'd rather they didn't make. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, for me, it doesn't rise to the level if he should have come off at halftime.
Right.
And that's because he had been really good. I mean, he was really, really good.
He was probably their best player in the first half, I thought.
And I think that if you want to reward players for good performances, like, I think if he comes off at halftime, yes, he doesn't get sent off and maybe they win that game. But then I think you're having a conversation of, is it really proportionate to the nature of the offense to take a guy who is your best player off at halftime because they got a silly yellow card in a passionate moment? And I don't think it does, personally. I don't think that it's one of those things where I can totally see the other side of the argument. For me, I just don't think I agree. And I think especially because of the nature of the second yellow card, right? Like, I wish he had not fouled as much as he did, but I think that's a really soft second yellow, especially in the context of what they're usually given for.
Yeah. And I guess the argument here is the soft nature of the second yellow sort of underscores why you take him off at halftime, because it just underscores how you're just leaving it up to the referee's hands.
Yeah.
I maybe this won't come as a surprise, but I tend to agree with you on this, though, is in a world where you take him off, you are maybe increasing your chances of winning based on what we know happened. But you're now having to spend a bunch of time answering questions and dealing with the fallout of. So what you're saying is you don't trust your players to pick up a first half yellow card, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
To be able to manage themselves, or you specifically don't trust Léo Chu to manage himself in that situation. And sure, you can argue we don't need another goal. We need to keep Portland from scoring. But I want Brian Schmetzer, the next time he's faced with this situation, to trust his player, because I think the better strategy is to try to get that third goal than it is to try to hold on to a 2-0 lead, especially at home, especially against a rival. And sure, we can get into like, look, you're playing a team you haven't beaten at home in 6 years or whatever. You got to if you got to grind it out, you got to grind it out. But that's not, I don't think that's how I want this team managed. That's not how I would want to manage.
Not with the way this game had gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I understand the argument. I understand that there were plenty of people that have presented this argument. I tend to think that it's mostly like, I can't tell you. I don't think I've ever seen an MLS coach remove a player at halftime in this situation like this one, where regardless of how they picked up their first yellow, regardless if they had been warned about potentially getting another yellow, or get with, like, I don't know, like it's possible that Brian Schmetzer saw the yellow card and was like, look, doesn't that cancel out your persistent infringement? You already give him the yellow card. You can't give him a persistent infringement again. I don't know. I don't think I think I'm mostly annoyed that they gave him the red.
I think that the second yellow was ridiculous. Yeah. I think that if he had made a very obvious yellow card foul,
right,
then that changes the equation.
Yeah.
But I think that he didn't. I mean, I don't think it was a reasonable second yellow card. I'm trying to find the number of fouls he committed in this game.
He only committed 3 fouls.
Yeah.
The 2 that he had before, and then the one that got him sent off.
And that just, to me, that just doesn't, I don't recall him being warned.
I mean, a lot of people have pointed out that he was. I did not. Yeah. I don't, and I guess it was before he got the yellow card, the first yellow card.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only way that yellow card makes sense is that it's a persistent infringement yellow. I think maybe the more likely scenario is that it was a yellow because the referee made a very bad call and thought that it was a professional foul when it wasn't. I don't think
reckless. I think he probably would have been calling it reckless. What happened, just in case, and maybe this will jog your memory, what happened was Nuhu made a interception, pushed it forward. Chu controlled it sort of off of his chest, I believe, or maybe off of his knee. Took about 2 steps, sees Zach McGraw in front of him, and clearly is like pulling back.
Yeah.
He maybe steps on his foot.
Yeah, I remember
getting kneed in the chest.
I remember like watching the replay a bunch of times and not seeing anything that really rose to the level of a yellow card, or potentially even a foul. Frankly, I think it's just a bad luck situation, and it is a situation that it has to be said that Léo Chu, in a large part, put himself in because he got a silly yellow card in the first half.
Watson's Counter wants to thank everyone for their patience, but now the wait is over. Located at 6420 24th Avenue Northwest in Ballard, they've reopened in a brand new location with the same bomb-ass coffee and the same dumbass vibes. You can still expect their classics like the gochujang fried chicken sandwich and Fruity Pebbles French toast, alongside their new soft serve program and their world-class coffee. Make sure to follow them on Instagram for all the latest and greatest. And I think we should also probably, though, talk about the Sounders' inability to manage the game. I mean, they were still up 2-0 at home against a bad team. Like, they shouldn't have given up 2 goals. And I guess they managed the first, 15 or so minutes okay. Like, they didn't give up a ton of chances. But it's very, very frustrating that on a throw-in, they lose the guy who seemingly always scores against you.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not have it? And I guess it was Obed Vargas's mark. Nuhu was definitely in the vicinity as well. And they just both kind of got caught ball watching on a throw-in. Why? Like, you can't give up that goal.
That has been a theme of late. That is really frustrating.
They've given up set piece goals in 6 of their last 7 games. Yeah. They'd only given up 1 set piece goal before that. And a lot of these are sort of these back post, like almost exactly same situation as Austin, where they just sort of lost a back post run. It was a corner, not a throw in, but similar principles at play. And on the flip side is they've suddenly started scoring on a bunch of set pieces, which is great, but it's not a good trade.
No, it's at best you're breaking even,
right?
In a situation like that.
And I don't think they are breaking even.
No, they're not. Yeah, and I think then giving up the second goal in such quick succession is just like, we talked about all the reasons that there were to take positivity from the game, them having another collapse like that.
Yeah.
That's just clearly like they make the same kind of mistake they've been making. That is a mistake that you would have at one point, not that long ago, characterized as being uncharacteristic of this team.
Right.
And then they make that mistake, and then immediately, they just fall apart and allow the next goal. And I mean, at least they didn't end up losing, right?
Right. And I will say, like, I feel like it's worth pointing out that over the last 15 minutes of the game, they outshot Portland 4-0. Sure. And the Sounders they didn't look like they were gonna score themselves, and they didn't exactly control the game, but they absolutely avoided completely collapsing, which is like, again, we're talking like lowest bar to clear. I get, but they did clear that bar. And I will also say Evanders was open on that shot. It's also a 25-yard curler, like his one really good moment in the game.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, a great goal.
It's a great goal.
But again, I mean, it's like I've said this a lot this year. I don't know if you agree necessarily, but it's just there have been all these games where, in the context of a season that's going well,
right, you just write it off and you don't. Yeah, I agree.
But they all stacked
piled up. Yeah, exactly.
And if you can spin that in a maybe semi-positive way and say, but they've been in a position where that's what's like been the downfall of the team, rather than just getting drubbed,
Right. And I think Schmetzer has sort of alluded or has said this, is he's more frustrated that the Sounders didn't find a way to get a third goal than he is frustrated that they gave up the two. And I think that's fair. Like, for as well as they played in the first half, probably the play of the game ends up being David Bingham making a point blank save on Raul Ruidiaz that would have made it 3-0. Sounders had multiple chances to get a third goal in the first half, and they just didn't come out in the third. At no point in the second half did they look like they were adamant about scoring a goal,
And I would say if you get a third goal in the first half, the case for taking off Léo Chu looks, I think, much, much stronger.
Sure.
I will say that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I would also agree. I also think that the game is effectively put to bed at that point. Yeah. And it just a complete mentality change. Right. If you get that third goal, everything changes. Everything. And weirdly, it almost would have been preferable, I suppose, for the Timbers to score. Maybe if the Timbers had scored a first half goal, the Sounders would have come out with a different mentality in the second half, like more committed to putting the game away or something. I don't know. I feel like that's going a little bit too into like game theory or something.
Right.
But it does sort of just underscore the Sounders' inability. Like, good teams find a way to win that game, and bad teams find a way not to.
Yeah.
And that feels a little bit like this situation. And this is maybe going back on some of the stuff I said earlier in the show about being mostly encouraged or at least entertained. But like, I think even the optimist says the Sounders haven't given me any reason to believe that they are likely to go on a run. Now,
right.
I think they've given us enough belief that they're capable of going on a run.
Or maybe they're worth watching.
Or they're worth right. Or maybe the lower bar that they're worth watching. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. But anything beyond that, tough to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is the second year in a row kind of that we're saying this, but I mean, I feel personally like I'll be somewhat relieved when the season is over. I hope it goes on as long as it possibly can.
Yeah.
But it has felt like a slog for a lot of it. Thank God we're done with Portland, right. But
and yet they're sitting here in second place in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's great. It's totally
which
nuts.
I guess should be like, I haven't mentioned that yet, and it should be highlighted. Like, for all the Sounders foibles,
Yeah.
the West is so wide open that that's really what gives me like any sense of hope, that the West is so wide open that anything can happen.
Yeah. You could do a reverse 2016.
You could do a reverse 2016,
but then the playoffs would have to go the same,
right?
But
yeah, St. Louis is leading the conference 6 points ahead of the Sounders, and I don't know, I'm not convinced that they're any great shakes. I mean, the Sounders beat them 3-0.
Different time, but sure,
yeah, a long time ago. LAFC is a point behind the Sounders. Granted, I realize that they have games in hand on the Sounders, but even by points per game, the Sounders are fourth in the West.
Yeah,
like, I don't know. Like, I definitely still expect them to make the playoffs. I definitely think, like, Ben Wright, who covers Nashville SC, does these projections based on points per game at home and points per game on the road and what games they have left. And these projections basically suggest the Sounders are probably going to finish somewhere between second and ninth. Which, that's
fair.
about right. That seems fair. Somewhere between second and ninth, all of which are playoff games. I will say that the most ridiculous, like, you just said the Sounders are done with the Timbers, which is something I put in print today. And then I realized, like, I suppose there's a scenario where the Sounders finish second and the Timbers finish ninth, and they face off in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be.
Well, that would be just
great. I mean, if you are gonna break the duck,
sure, that would be great. That would be great.
I do think. I mean, I should have thought of this before we started recording. You're right that the Sounders obviously are in second place. You're right that they're fourth on points per game. But since May is really the question, right? Because, like, I don't think you can throw out what they did early in the season, but I think you've definitely got to treat it a little differently. And I genuinely don't really know where, since that hot start, they would rank. Would they be down to Colorado?
I can tell you, actually.
That would be great.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly where they'd be. But so since April 9th, which is the day after they beat St. Louis, the Sounders are sixth. I'm shocked by that.
I am too.
Just in the West.
That is really shocking. I mean, that really does hammer home how bad the Western Conference is. But honestly, I mean, MLS in general is kind of bad this year. And that's not the right way to characterize it, right? But there's just there's very few standout teams.
Yeah, FC Cincinnati is going to probably run away with the Shield. They might actually break the points record.
That'd be very funny.
But they are a flawed team. They're only plus 14 goal difference, which is like not that great. I'm still sitting here shocked that the Sounders are sixth in the West since April.
Yeah, I mean, they would be seventh in the Eastern Conference now. I don't know since April, but they'd be just behind Atlanta, a point behind Atlanta. MLS in general is just not great. The West is probably worse. I think. I mean, if you look at the table, the West certainly appears worse. But the reality is that the Sounders don't have to be great even in the playoffs to make a run.
No,
because
there's just not,
like, this is a year that you can win a trophy being mediocre.
Hey, Miami was the worst team in the league in the first half of the season, or 2/3 of the season, and they've already won a trophy.
Right.
So
yeah, it's true.
That might tell you something.
I guess my overall point is that any other podcast about any other team, they're probably having very similar conversations, because there have been very few teams that have been consistently good this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're probably right. And I suppose if you want their silver lining, maybe that's it. I don't think we have much else to. I was gonna say maybe we'll come back and do a second segment. I don't think we have a second segment of content.
No, we don't have anything else to. I mean, there's nothing to preview. We don't have another game for a couple weeks.
We do have a mailbag episode coming up.
We do. It's a good one.
You got to, fortunately or unfortunately, I suppose, you have to be a paid subscriber of Sounder Heart to get that one. We're putting that one behind the paywall. That's the way it's gonna be for now. Hopefully, people appreciate that.
Yeah.
We do a lot of stuff in front of paywalls. That one isn't. Another thing, if you are like one of these people that only is a podcast listener, they don't read the site. Maybe those people exist. We also the other perk for subscribers is I've been doing this like 10-minute mini podcast called Sound Bites, and that one won't probably come out for I'm doing that mostly around games. I'm still kind of trying to dial that in how it sounds, but that's another. We're trying out stuff. My hope, fingers crossed, I'm going to have a long interview with Hugh Weber, the president of Sounders, in the next 10 days or so, and there will be a shorter version that is available to everyone. Then there'll be an extended version that's available to paid subscribers. But generally speaking, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is a paid subscriber. We passed 1,250 paid subscriptions this week, which blows me away. That's great. Like, I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited hopefully where this is going. We still need. I don't want to like pump the brakes on people signing up. I really want to encourage everyone to sign up, and I hope it's like people just want like this content. Like, that's my hope. You're not just doing it because it's like, oh, I want to make sure this is around. No, I actually want the content that you're providing for money. Yeah. So anyway, do you have anything to add there, Aaron? This has been quite an adventure.
It has, yeah. I feel like we are starting to figure out value adds for subscribers. I think that we're starting to figure out ways for anyone, whether subscriber or not, to to utilize the new platform, do things a little differently, and maybe a little more interesting than had to be done during the heavy SEO days when everything was traffic related. There's a lot of great content on the site these days. Always has been, but I think I'll plug another piece. I think it's coming out today. Ian Lamberson, who you may know as a handle for Ian on Twitter. He writes for American Soccer Analysis, among other things. He has a really fun, interesting piece on Josh Atencio and sort of what statistics are telling us about this midfielder. Yeah, there's a ton of great content on there. Whether you're a subscriber or not, we'd love to have you obviously, but
our Discord seems to be people figuring that out, having good discussions.
Business is picking up over there. There's good stuff in the forums. If you aren't a subscriber but you miss the questions episodes, that's the only way to get on there now is in the Discord. And there's also some great discussion in the Discord about those questions. So yeah, sign on up. Discord is fun. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it, but it's fun.
Well, it's new,
Yeah, it's like 10 years old. That's
new
no time at all.
New for us Gen Xers.
Yeah, no, it's true. I've only been on Discord for a couple of years, so it's not like I can talk.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, that's probably a good place to call this. Thank you to our sponsors, Full Pool Wines and Watson's Counter. Thank you again to everyone who is subscribing to Sounder at Heart and making this possible. It's been a lot of fun bidding. People say they're humbled by these things, and I am genuinely by everything that's been going into this. So thank you to everyone. We'll be back in around the time that the Sounders, hopefully we'll be talking about a win against. Aren't you glad we recorded after the Austin game?
I am. Yeah.
Oh definitely. My God.
Definitely.
It's been too rare that we've been able to record episodes after a win.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have more of those to come. But I'm Jeremiah Shan signing off for Aaron Campo and Lickett. This is Nos Adietis. Remember, you will never get alone.
We love you. Let's win another one.